Hi, this is Spencer Davis with John Broughton on 3SER KC Radio.
Right back to the beginnings of the Spencer Davis Group. Do you remember the first time you caught the Winwood brothers in performance?
Yes, that would have been in a pub in a northern suburb of Birmingham, and I, a week or so before, played a gig at a club called the Golden Eagle, and they'd asked me if I'd play the whole evening, and I said I couldn't do it because I wouldn't be able to hold out the whole evening. I don't think I have a big enough repertoire, but I would put a band together. And so I made some inquiries, and it's the old networking or A&R and whatever you want to call it. And I went to this, I was recommended to go see this band called the Muff Woody Jazz Band, and that's when I saw the Winwood brothers performing. And this would have been somewhere around about the end of 1963, I would say, thereabouts, or in 63.
And when you were getting the group together, the Spencer Davis Group, did you have a set plan or blueprint, what the type of sound that you were looking for the band?
Oh, I had a set plan, yeah. I wanted to play the craze that was sweeping Britain at that time for every band play. You either wanted to be in a pop group, like a straight-ahead sort of pop group, or you wanted to be in a rhythm and blues band. I went for the latter, of course, because it had that flavor of Jimmy Reed and Big Bill Broonzy and Muddy Waters and all the rest of it, the same as the Stones did and the same as the Animals. And so I had a specific idea. Obviously, I didn't know what it was I was putting together. I just was putting something together that I felt was what was right in terms of what I wanted to hear. And it just so happened that I probably had my finger on the pulse without knowing it. You know, sometimes you do a lot of these things.
Yeah.
And everybody says, boy, that was really clever how you planned all that. And you say, it was? Well, thank you.
The early single releases of the band were primarily covers, weren't they?
What's that?
The early singles of the band were mainly covers? Was this mainly because the songwriting talents hadn't yet emerged, or was it...
Yeah, well, the thing is that we dipped heavily into the old American Southern black blues repertoire, and then later, of course, the more electric blues of Chicago. You know, like the Buddy Guys and the Otis Rushes and people like that. Much the same as again Clapton and Mayall were doing. You know.
Right. And do you remember the first time you heard one of your records on radio?
Yes, I do.
What was the feeling?
Total amazement, because in Britain, if anybody appears on the radio or television, you know, it means that they must be really, really, really important people. And, you know, you suddenly felt as if you'd arrived, you know. That was a tremendous feeling.
Yeah.
It still is. I woke up at 5 o'clock the other morning in the Ramada Inn at Frankfurt Airport in Germany, and because of the time, I just arrived over there like the night prior to that from Los Angeles. I was doing a date at a big convention out there, and I turned the TV/radio on, and the first bloody song that came on was "Give Me Some Lovin'." Isn't that wild?
That thrill never goes away then.
What's that, John?
That thrill never goes away of hearing your songs on the radio.
I think that if you take stuff for granted, I think you're going to become jaded. That's what I think. I mean, you know, we were a bunch of ordinary blokes that had hit on or were listening to good old black American blues, and as you rightfully said, we were covering that. But I did write. I mean, the very first record we made, I wrote the B-side of that, and that was a song called "Sittin' and Thinkin'." Of course, in the early days, I gave credit to everybody because I thought they're all in the band, and I was so naive. I thought, that's how you did it. Whatever came in. I think it was probably too much of being brought up in socialist Wales. Who knows?
Now, you had a budding teaching career going in your younger days too, didn't you?
I was into linguistics, into modern languages, and I did finish off my degree actually in Birmingham in the Midlands. That's where I'd met the Winwoods and Pete York, of course. And I went to Berlin for a while too. I was kind of very interested in what was going on. So yes, I was going to be. I was teaching and playing in the blues band on a weekend, and then the blues band took over, and that's what happened to the rest of my life.
Was there any stage, was there a personal dilemma deciding which direction to go?
Absolutely not.
No. Chris Blackwell, obviously a key figure in the band's success. How was the band's working relationship with him during those heady days?
Well, when he came into our lives, he brought Millie Small, who had that hit "My Boy Lollipop."
Oh yeah.
And he brought her up to do a television show in the Birmingham area. I think this television show was called "Thank Your Lucky Stars." Wonderful title for those things. They were kind of like the television shows that they had in Britain, again, like Top of the Pops or Ready Steady Go, and this was the Birmingham area's answer to those programs. And he had been recommended to catch two bands in the Birmingham area. One of them was Carl Wayne and the Vikings, I believe, which later on turned into The Move.
Mm-hmm.
And the other band was the Spencer Davis Rhythm and Blues Quartet, because then we called it the RBQ. We later on changed the name because of, not to be confused with the NRBQ.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think as many people as want to can claim who named the band, but the only fair way is to give the public, the audience, the credit for that. They really called it, that Spencer Davis band, whatever you want to call it. And I thank them graciously for that. Well, it was my brainchild. I didn't put the thing together. I will step on that claim forever, because I did. But Blackwell came to the Whiskey A Go-Go, and we just moved from the Golden Eagle because we'd had a rise in a pay raise, and we went down the street a little bit, and he was obviously taken by the band. And don't forget, we had a very young Winwood in the band too, at probably 16,
right.
17.
Speaking of Steve, how were relationships within the band after his star sort of began to shine?
The relationships were fine. Then the sort of the cracks which appeared in the band, I think they came mainly from outside rather than inside, because if you ever get a chance to talk to Steve, he'll tell you that he didn't want to do covers and all the rest of it. But by then, we that wasn't a legitimate excuse, because we were now writing our own stuff. Give Me Some Lovin' and I'm a Man, which were co-authored by Give Me Some Lovin' was Muff, Steve, and myself, and I'm a Man was Jimmy Miller and myself at first, and then Steve joined in later. Two of the major songs. The thing is that Blackwell favored Steve. There was, obviously, everybody, when people say that Steve Winwood was the Spencer Davis group, that makes, that raises my hackles. I get ticked off at that, because I've been in a band when I was 16. Before, like when I was a 16-year-old, I put a band together. I was always putting bands together, and in fact, I just did that this morning by calling down to Florida, calling people that I work with. So I'm still doing it. It never stops. I thought I should have called Steve up at 5 o'clock in the morning and said, "Right, come on, I got an emergency. You should come with me." Yeah, but obviously, the media, when the media focuses in on one of the people in the band, it can often mean the death knell of the three others.
Yeah.
And that almost happened. But when Steve left the band, I'd written yet another song with, I co-authored another song with Eddie Hardin, the guy that replaced Steve in the band, and that song was called Don't Want You No More, which was a kind of a blues-based rock song. And the Allman Brothers cut that and put it on their Beginnings album. So, there's my story of how I managed to make, when Steve left, how I managed to continue. It wasn't, when Steve left, there were major problems. Everybody said, Spencer Davis is finished. And I didn't set out to prove them wrong or anything. I just continued doing what I do and
right.
what I'm doing now.
So obviously there would have been that problem with latter versions of the group always being compared to the Steve Winwood era. Yeah.
But we made some great stuff after Steve left as well.
Do you have any standout memories of some of those classic sessions? Was there any one song when you knew you'd got it down before it even got released, you knew this was going to be major?
Keep On Running.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we got the rough demo of Keep On Running from Jackie Edwards, who was the writer of that song, we had to do more of an arrangement or rearrange it somewhat. Not a radical rearrangement, because it's a fairly simple song, but it's a classic. There's no doubt about it. We went into the studio and laid down a rhythm track and got, and there was such a nice groove on it, and that punchy old bass that Muff Winwood played on the front, that do 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 dun dun dun. Was it
instantly recognizable? Yeah,
instantly recognizable, right? And before Steve's voice even came in, and when we finished doing that, I remember my then wife, but now my ex-wife. I mean, she was jumping up and down in the studio, and I thought, oh, we've done some damage. That was one of Blackwell's favorite expression, and I've always that gave me the clue, that sometimes guys had cloth ears and that women would make better A&R people than guys, Yeah, I really believe that.
Yeah. Did you have any concept at the time that these songs were going to be classics that would live on for, here we are 30 years on?
Well, I have to answer honestly that if we did not sit down and say, today we are going to write a song which will become a classic rock and roll song or a classic song, because had we had that approach, we'd have been churning them out like Lieber and Stoller or Goffin and King or something.
Yeah, true.
But, had no idea. Yeah. I mean, it was what we felt. It was, and how we played. I mean, when you think about it, when you listen to the sound of the original Spencer Davis Group compared to the sound of, say, Traffic or the later versions of the Spencer Davis Group, the intensity and the unique sound really belonged to that original band.
Mm-hmm. Steve's departure from the band, was that essentially a case of him just wanting to pursue different musical directions?
I would say, well, Steve's line was that he wanted to play with musicians his own age. And I called him on that. When I remember reading one of the articles, I phoned him up and I said, "What's this nonsense here?" And he laughed. He said, "Oh, that was an old piece that they put in there." And I said, "You will always play with musicians that are older than you, because you started out so young." So that sort of gap would be there. But I never looked at a gap of 9 years between us as being a serious generation gap. I think it led more to do with some of the illegal substances, and things like, it was more of a social sort of thing as well. Mm-hmm. Like a social statement. Because the university crowd, I suppose, the intellectual bluesers and all that probably were pints of bitter men as opposed to the jazz herbal cigarettes.
Right, just talk about away from the band for a while. You went into the business and management side of music there for a while too, didn't you?
That's right. Well, what I really did was I took the same skills or whatever you want to call them, that I had sort of from selecting musicians and to working with them, and it was very easy for me to do that because I mean, I knew how I sort of knew how they functioned. I knew what they liked and what they didn't like. Mm-hmm. And so I moved into what could be called artist development, which really is just a fancy name for promoting the act that you're with. And because I'd done so many radio interviews and so much television and so much print that I had a very good relationship with a lot of the people, a lot of the writers in the media. And I was able to introduce the bands, that I was working with to them, and make my sort of set them up and then leave, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed doing that, but I never really stopped playing. I always played something somewhere.
You never really put your guitar away or anything?
No, never. In fact, when Eddie and the Hot Rods, one of the bands that we had when I was doing this very precisely, the artist development thing at Island Records, Eddie and the Hot Rods, Barry, there's no Eddie, I mean, that was just the name of the band, but Barry, and I've forgotten his second name, the singer, said, you know, I said, we got to go and do Billboard or Cashbox or one of these newspapers, you know. And he said, I'll only do it if you'll sit in with the band, you know, obviously testing me. And I said, okay. So they were playing at the Whiskey A Go-Go, and I got off and played Get Out of Denver with them. And I said, right, I've done my part of the bargain, right, you got to do the interview. I didn't hear a word from them after that.
Mm-hmm.
So they went and did the interview.
Experience working in the management and business side of music, do you think that taught Spencer Davis, musician, to how to work better with record companies and management?
I would say so.
Yeah.
I would hope so, because, you know, I could take the tired stance of you know, the embittered musician or whatever, but I mean, that isn't the case. I mean, I got so much work that I was hoping to have a quiet weekend this weekend, because I'd been whizzing around the world, or started already, but it doesn't look as if that's going to be the case. I'm sort of drifted away from what you asked me, but I think that kind of gets into what you were asking me.
Having worked on both sides of the fields, who do you think has a better understanding and respect for what the other does, musicians or management?
I think that it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, because what I was going to say was, not all managers and agents and publishers are out to exploit the bands. There are some great people in this industry, and they have stayed the course by being very, very straight with the musicians. Because sometimes I have to admit that I've come across musicians, and they shall be nameless, who do not have a cast iron grip on reality.
Mm.
And their expectations are, you know, totally over the moon, and their attitudes to people. I've seen that. But sometimes the biggest crime that they commit is that they are not aware that they're doing this. You know what I'm saying? They're unaware of the way they are.
Right.
And I suppose there's a kind of a schizo attitude with me, because I can see the business side of things. You know, I mean, I will look at the business side of things, and then once I've got those put to bed, then I immediately put another hat on and become a guitar player and a blues crooner in the band. You know, which I enjoy. I've always enjoyed working with different people. I used to be terrified if I couldn't. Like, the first call I made for this job this weekend was to the Franklin brothers, 2 guys that I know. They're from the Midwest in the States, but now they live down in Florida, and these guys are working all the time. And if any major artist goes through, you know, like maybe like a Chuck Berry or a Chubby Checker, or, you know, or the Drifters or something, these guys have such a repertoire of music, and they can play with anybody. I mean, they are true musicians. These guys, they can play jazz, they can play country music. They're musicians.
Yeah.
And when they weren't available, I thought, oh God, this is going to be a nightmare. But this referral thing, exactly the same thing that I did at the tender age of 19 or 20. I said, I need a guitar player, I need a keyboard player, I need a bass player, I need a drummer. Oh, I can't do it, but try so-and-so, so-and-so. And that is a method of operation amongst a lot of musicians, and I'm sure the same goes for the musos in Australia as well.
Well, just reading up a little bit on you the other day, I found you also worked as a technical translator. What does that involve?
Well, as we said earlier on, I have a degree in modern languages, German, French, and Spanish. Mm-hmm. But I had a handle on not just on the on romantic poetry and essays and things, but I also was good in chemistry and physics. Well, reasonably in physics. So I had an ability to figure out scientific stuff as well. Because the scientific language is totally different from poetic language. You know, there's absolutely no shadow of a doubt there. So I had a family, wife, 2 little girls and 2 girls and a little boy, and I wasn't really playing full time. and wanted to be around the house. So I went to what was called Agnew, Agnew, Agnew Technical Translations. I later on called them Agony Technical Translations. And I translated a lot of documents, and I helped build a what was then probably secret, but I think it's probably not secret now. I helped translate documents to assemble what was called the Roland missile.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've done some bizarre things in my life, but, you know, that's what life's all about, you know.
Obviously, that fluency in languages, particularly German, is probably a major reason why Germany's been such a good market for you over the years.
I would say so, and also the fact that the original drummer, Peter York, lives in just south of Munich, and his wife's German. So when he and I, who essentially met he's the original drummer from the Spencer Davis Group, but I was playing with him because as soon as they put the band together, I said, "You're the drummer," you know. I mean, he said, "I am." I said, "Yeah." He was perfect for that kind of blues-based sort of rock and roll, you know, jazzy, bluesy-based rock and roll. And he lives in Germany, so he works with an agent there. So all I do is just have a guitar, we'll travel.
Yeah.
Just go and... in fact, we've got another... If you look on the web, I don't know whether you found my web page at all.
Yes, yep.
You see you can see the itinerary for Germany. By the way, Southampton in England just came in on the 31st, or the 30th of April. If there's only 30 days in April, I can't remember how many days are in what at the moment. But yeah, 1st of May is in Glossop, which is between Manchester and Sheffield. And I also think we're going to be playing while we're up there. We're going to do a quick trot over to Buxton and play at the Alexis Corner annual tribute to Alexis Corner.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so that's happening.
So the road show continues.
What's that?
The road show continues then.
No, it's essentially I've gone too far down the road to come back now.
Yeah. What about your current band?
What's that?
Your current band. What's the makeup there?
Oh, the current band is made up of a guy called Ed Tree. In fact, he was the guitar player that came with me when we came to Australia.
Oh, right, he's still with you.
Yeah, he's still. Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, this you know, you always you stay with it. I mean, he's the kind of guy that if I'm rushing around, I can say, Ed, can you get some stuff together for the band? And I mean, I can just come off a plane from somewhere else and just land with these guys, and Ed's got it all worked out. You know, I mean, he's a friend as well. Mm-hmm. You know, and then that's the most important relationship that I have with the musicians is that it's not Spencer Davis backed by 4 other musicians. It's the Spencer Davis Group, and I'm a part of the band as well.
Right.
And that's how I saw the Spencer Davis Group with Steve Winwood. I said, this guy can sing. Let's stick him out the front there because this is like the best part of the band. So it was a double-edged sword. A lot of people thought, that Spencer Davis guy, you know, when he just sits in the back there plunking away on the guitar, maybe he'll get up and play, maybe he'll sing a song or he'll play a harmonica or something. But with this band, with Ed, I do get out, and I do a lot more. In fact, in the early days with the Spencer Davis Group, I did 50% of the song, 50-50 anyway. Steve and I did all the singing, and I call it singing. And Muff Winwood, who was a very funny guy, used to call it Mr. Rhythm and Mr. Blues. I was Mr. Rhythm and Steve was Mr. Blues or something. Yeah, which is funny.
Is there a good mix of old and new fans coming to see you these days?
Oh, right from like early 20s to our age group. So yeah, as they say in America, the real wide demographics, you know. But yeah, me, I don't care how old they are. I mean, my daughter, who's in her early 30s now, she's got a little granddaughter, and we were doing a benefit up in Las Vegas. And Give Me Some Love and all playing Somebody Help Me. There she was, you know.
Yeah.
Very funny.
So
a wide generation gap.
Touring and performing obviously still has the same appeal for you now as it, say, did 30 years ago?
The curiosity has worn off because the pattern is the same. You know, you you get up, you throw your guitar over your shoulder, you pack your bag, and you get in a car, takes you to the airport, you go through the metal detectors and all the rest of it, and then you get on an airplane and you fly for hours, and you get out, get in another car, and yeah, it could be boring, but it isn't, because you always meet new and different people. But it's what I've done. Like I said earlier on, when you go down the road, when you go so far down the road, there's no turning back.
No turning back, exactly. Yeah. Do you still have contact with some of the other past members of the band?
Muff and Steve came to Ronnie Scott's last May, I think it was.
Yeah.
And we were hoping that they'd show up on the same night, but they didn't. One showed up on Wednesday, the other showed up on a Thursday, because we were going to have a jam together.
Ah, almost a reunion.
Yeah. I mean, we don't look at it as a reunion, because there's probably an enormous pressure. I mean, a lot of bands, I think Fleetwood Mac have just got together again. Do you know about that?
I heard a whisper on that, yeah.
Because Dave Mason, who's also part of our family, was in a version of Fleetwood Mac for a while.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, I've never pinned my hopes on a reunion. It would be nice to do it, because if you look at it, other than the Kinks, for instance, I think they have all their members complete. You look at a lot of bands, and it's a sort of an ominous sort of thing. I mean, look at the Animals. Chaz Chandler passed away. I mean, the guy died on my bloody birthday last July. I mean, that wasn't very nice of him. You know, if I could, if it were possible to talk to him, I'd have a word with him about that. Wasn't a very tasty thing to do. He was a good buddy, but we probably have. We have one of the few bands. Rolling Stones have lost somebody. Lost Brian, who was a good friend. Yeah, you know. We didn't have the same taste in drugs, but we had the same taste in music. The Who, Keith Moon, another crazy lunatic friend of mine. So we had one of the few bands from the 60s that have 4 original members who actually talked to one another.
And lived.
And lived, yeah. So we must have been doing something right.
You listened much to the state of today's music?
Do I listen to today's music?
Yeah.
That's a good job. We switched to this phone, because that's going on the answering machine.
I can hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm moving out of the way. Yeah, it never stops here. There are people that I listen to. I went once with the girlfriend's daughter, the ex-girlfriend's daughter, to see Nine Inch Nails, because she said, I don't want to take her, but she wants to go and see Nine Inch. It's somebody talking on the other thing, so we'll have to let them do that. I went to see Nine Inch Nails, and it was a lot of noise, but I understand that Trent Reznor writes a lot of stuff, composes a lot of music for video games and that. The guy is he's a technician.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, Natalie Merchant I like a lot. I mean, I wouldn't call her stuff really modern or anything, but she reminds me a lot of Sandy Denny.
Yeah.
And there's another singer came out of Canada, like an 18-year-old Dana with a Y. I can't remember her second name, but some friends of mine, a producer from Toronto, came over a couple of days ago. They played me the CD and gave me the CD. I liked R.E.M. in the beginning, Losing My Religion, that song, because it was an interesting song. But I'm not bogged down in the music of the 60s. No, I listen to anything. Doing A&R, I had to listen to stuff.
Of course, yeah.
But I'm a big fan a reasonable fan of Dwight Yoakam. Well, actually, his bass player plays with me sometimes when we don't have the other bass player who incidentally played with Mail for 5 years, Ricky Cortez. Because the keyboard player that I have playing with me does gigs with Chuck Berry as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's an incestuous family. But yeah, I mean, you hit me with a title or a band, because it's difficult for me to think one up now.
Yeah, fair enough too.
Which band would you ask me if I like?
Oh, gee, you're putting me on the spot now, Spencer.
All right, well, that's about time.
Look, this will finish up. Remaining plans for 97, and do they include hopefully visiting us down here?
Well, Bill Minot, who is the agent, who I'm talking to in a few moments to try and sort this Florida deal out in a moment. He said, "When was the last time you were there?" I think, was it 93? I can't remember.
I think you said the other day it was about 93. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Well, I think it's well timed to come down, come there again, because I had a wonderful time and I met some wonderful people there. In fact, I met one guy I went to school with in Sydney.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was in Swansea, because I'm from Swansea in South Wales, the old South Wales, not the new South Wales.
Mm.
But yeah, I would love to come there again. I had such a good time, met a lot of people, and it'd be nice to see you, and to maybe come into Melbourne and do the thing in the studio as opposed
that'd be great. Yeah,
I would love to do that. Yeah, so. When are you going to run this?
Putting it to air probably early April.
Will you have the beep? Will you have the beeps on it?
Well, we'll see what we can do about those.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Any upcoming releases?
Yeah, I did an album for CMC International, which is a company it's a small label, and we've been trying to get that out for this month because I've got. As you can see from the webpage, I've got quite an extensive tour of Germany and the UK, and it would have been nice to have had that there. But I did work with a band called the Classic Rock All Stars up until a year and a half ago or so, and we put a live CD out because people like to have a CD of the band that they've just seen. And those things go very well. But the CMC release is through BMG, which is quite a big distributor. So I'm just hoping that they can get their act together. I've done it. There's about 18 songs on it. A mix of some of the early Spencer Davis group. They asked me to. In fact, I sang some of those songs I hadn't sung before, but I enjoyed doing it.
Terrific.
And the other band, with their Eddie Hardin, and then 5 or 6 originals in there as well.
So it's done, just has to get out. We're looking forward to that.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to getting it out.
All right, Spencer, look, I won't hold up any more of your time. I'll let you enjoy some kind of a quiet weekend.
This is going to be a hectic weekend. All right, John.
All the best, and hopefully we'll see you down here real soon.
I hope so.
Okay.
Send me an email, let me know, what you're up to as well.
Sure thing.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.